Hey everybody, we're the good doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I'm Dr. Kristen.
And we're at the season finale of season 4 of The Crown, so titled War, for the war that's going on inside the royal family.
I know Maggie mentioned that they were possibly at war with, were we doing Gulf War stuff at this point?
Gulf War, yeah, Persian Gulf War
We were doing Persian Gulf stuff, yeah.
We don't really get a date in this.
No, but wasn't she overthrown in 1990?
90? Yeah, we don't get a date in this one at all. It's really hard to follow what's happening and what the timeline is as per usual for The Crown. But this episode basically tells two stories. One, the downfall of Margaret Thatcher. Two, the continued dissolution of the Wales's marriage, and all the horrible intricacies therein. We get some fantastic slapdowns from the Queen and Prince Charles. We get a trip to New York in which the Princess Diana very famously hugs a child with AIDS, and then Charles rakes her over the coal for it. And like, well, I'll say this at the beginning because I know we've said it in pretty much every episode recap and discussion, but it's always worth repeating. We're real upset about the way some of these characters are behaving. I don't know if this is how Charles and Diana behaved. I would really hope not. So the rants that we're going to go on
are entirely about the characters.
I don't know if Charles is this much of a spoiled child in real life. I would really like to believe that he isn't. But I think that's worth saying because we might get some comments about how angry we are, but we're angry, y'all.
We've never enjoyed the final episode of a season of The Crown, truly. No, and we're happy to report that the streak continues.
4 for 4.
4 for 4 on not understanding why Peter Morgan stopped the story here.
On why we're telling this story. Yeah, so we start with Sir Geoffrey Howe resigning in the Commons. He's one of Margaret Thatcher's longest supporters, and his resignation starts the ball rolling of a lot of people being upset about how Margaret Thatcher is handling her premiership, what has happened to the United Kingdom during her tenure, etc., etc. Are we supposed to feel empathetic for Margaret Thatcher in this? I don't know. But we get a lot of her being very upset at people turning on her. Why this is surprising, I don't know. Why she thinks she gets to be prime minister forever. That's not how the role works. I don't know.
She also seems shocked, which baffles me because
so much of the way she, like Gillian Anderson portrayed her in this episode, baffles me.
So the little I do know, like in real life about Mags's downfall is that this isn't the first time she faced a leadership challenge.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time she faced a full formal one.
Yeah.
But, like, she knew people hated her and she kind of like thrived on that. But she did have this very strong identity of loyalty. So I will buy that Geoffrey Howe's public, like, no, I can't, like, your hatred of Europe is just gone. Like, you can't keep scolding the world and expect them to work with us.
Yeah.
Which is largely what was her downfall, is that Europe and Britain both got really tired of being scolded by their mother, which is very much how that was her chalk and cheese. That was her trade, though, was that I'm smart and I know what's best for you. And so I don't need to collaborate. I don't need to hear from the rest of you. We saw this with the Commonwealth of Nations.
Yeah. And
he knows best at all times. And it's a very
it's very
best
and it's
vibe
and dismissive. And it's not collaborative at all, which was not what she was known for.
And like, had dudes gotten away with it forever?
Yeah.
Yes, but they've also been deposed as well too when they stopped collaborating with people. And like, we're not shy about our deep and abiding distrust of Margaret Thatcher's person and our dislike of her policies. So this shouldn't be a surprise, but every single moment that Mags was on screen in this one, I felt was a waste of our time.
And like, are we supposed to believe that she actually went to the Queen and asked her to dissolve Parliament?
I actually, no. I think that's true. I do think that's true because that was in one of those weirdo documentaries that we watched. I do think that's true.
Hubris.
I'm Googling right now because I think that's true.
Also, to sit there and like, I just don't like her, y'all. I just don't like her. She sat there in front of the sovereign and tried to pretend like Elizabeth was crazy for asking her about the scandal. Oh, what are you talking about? Oh, no, it's nothing. Oh, don't you worry your pretty little head about it. That's the fucking Queen of England. Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Like, you know, Elizabeth's not a perfect person, but like, show some respect. I was so mad at her. She leads by force with like absolutely no compassion and no compromise, and she is wondering why she is no longer popular. Baffles. So we get this really interesting in terms of analysis, because one of the reasons why we cover the show is because we're fascinated with forms of leadership, and the show is in a lot of ways about different forms of leadership, and we get that contrast really fascinatingly so in this showdown between the Queen and Margaret Thatcher.
So really briefly, I've just Googled the dissolving Parliament is an invention of the Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Because her job is being stolen from her.
Yeah.
And according to the biographies of Elizabeth, her resignation to the Queen was without conflict.
Yeah.
So this entire exchange wasn't
invented, which doesn't surprise me because without getting too much into contemporary American politics, there was a lot of this season that felt like Margaret Thatcher was a commentary on the current president of the United States.
Yes, and Peter Morgan having feelings about that current president.
And I think she was a stand-in, and so I think as soon as she said the word, it's like my leadership is being stolen from me, I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not at all surprised that was invented. But it provides a fascinating juxtaposition of their two leadership styles. And how the Queen says, like, you don't always have to do something. Sometimes, like, not doing anything. And what did she say? Power is nothing without authority. When the Queen tells Margaret Thatcher, and she goes, "Is it right to exercise a power simply because you have it?" So again, I think making commentary on current politics in the UK and
as well. About to say Peter Morgan is not shy about his feelings about Boris Johnson either. So
right. So I think that's some not so veiled commentary. And it's fascinating that Thatcher's comeback is the difference is you have power in doing nothing. And she looks at her, she goes, yeah, but you will have your dignity if you like just take your foot off the brake. So the world's tiniest violin for Margaret Thatcher. I'm not sure why we needed to explore her resignation this much, except for the fact that we just discussed that possibly he had some thoughts and feelings about Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. The other aspect of this episode is the horrors of the Wales's marriage. So we get Diana being treated like she's insignificant, like she's mad. She goes to New York. We get a lot of shots of her bulimia. Charles and Camilla is some really creepy moments where she still calls him sir.
Sir. Whew. Okay. I hope for the human race that's a no, that sounds like kink shaming, and I really don't mean to, but that's something I don't want to know.
Yeah, let's put it that way. We're not going to judge it if that's the way Charles wanted to roll, but I didn't need to know it.
Didn't need that piece of trivia.
A fascinating conversation in which Camilla realizes that Diana will always be the victim, and she will always be like the mistress. And there's no way she can win this scenario. And I was like, why is everyone smarter than Charles? Why does everyone understand this? And Charles is just a whiny little brat. But I love you, but you're my one true love. It doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, you spent way too much time with your great uncle. This is not how the world works.
Is this like we're supposed to believe this is the influence of David, good old Uncle Dave. The Queen gives Margaret Thatcher the Order of Merit.
I don't remember if that happened. I do know she's named a Baroness like 2 years after she resigns, and she serves in the House of Lords like almost until she dies. But I don't know. It was all just very, I didn't want anything. Like I said, we were wasting time with Maggie. I just need to know that she resigned. That could have been a BBC clip that Philip watched.
Yeah.
And because let me tell you, the MVP of this episode is Philip, which is not something that has ever come out of my mouth before.
His joy about her getting like kicked in the teeth was
amazing.
Righteous.
And his speech to Diana at the end, I felt was well-founded.
Yes. And
setting aside the fact that Diana has been emotionally abused by this family and all those kind of other things, his speech is still true.
Yeah. And like, so we'll the two big confrontations that happen towards the end of the episode are between the Queen and Charles and Diana and Philip. Charles goes to the Queen and says a whole lot of horrible things that I hope he didn't say in real life. Like he's done his best in his marriage.
I would like receipts, please, because we have seen no evidence. As
nobody cares about my suffering. Everything is so awful. So I'm married to a wonderful woman and get to sleep with my mistress whenever I want and have two wonderful boys, but my whole life is terrible. And the Queen gets one of the best lines written on this show where she says, you are a spoiled, immature young man, endlessly complaining unnecessarily, married to an immature young woman, endlessly complaining unnecessarily. We're not saying we 100% agree with her, especially about Diana, because Diana is in a terrible position. And like, where I err more towards empathy with Diana is that like she didn't know what she was getting into and nobody told her.
No.
At this stage, Dr. Kristen and I are both thinking she could have figured it out by now.
But like we're not British royals in the early 1990s, and we're sitting here in 2021 with a lot of therapy under our belts, so we recognize this. We recognize this wholeheartedly. We both have known people that suffer from disordered eating and that live with it all the time. We know all of these things. I will still tell you that the character was hard to jive with, but not nearly as hard as Charles, who I wanted to throttle with my bare hands.
No, because one of the fundamental truths that we have learned in this show that I think they've done a brilliant job of showing is that the Queen exists in this weird, like, in between where everyone her family, particularly her children, expect her to grow and change as a person. But literally her role as the sovereign means that she can't.
She's frozen.
If she is to survive as Elizabeth Regina at all, she has to believe that she is this immovable, unchangeable entity chosen by God.
Now, I think there is still space in that for some evolution.
Yeah.
So, like, she could have
seen her grow in small ways.
In small ways. And every time she tries to grow in ways that we would approve of, Mom comes in and because Mom also has a really inappropriate understanding of the crown as an entity frozen in time, which is not Elizabeth's. Like, Elizabeth's whole thing is that I am a steward of this role and I cannot change the role.
The role. Yeah.
But her mother wants her to not change
like
the world.
How
it's very, very bizarre.
Yeah, how anything is done. That's a really important distinction. And so for me, it was fascinating to see this play out and like literally she knows if she changes the role too much, the monarchy crumbles. She crumbles, the monarchy crumbles. Done.
And when she says to Charles, if you want to be king, you need to start acting like it. I applauded.
Yeah.
I am one of the owners of a small company. And I know that there are things I can and cannot do no matter what. This is just how the world works. And I wasn't even born into this life.
Exactly. So, and Charles is what, 40, 42, 43, older than us. And still the character of Charles, again, the character of Charles, a petulant child complaining about a circumstance he has known would be his future for his whole adult life.
And does it sound fun? It does not.
It does not.
Would I want to be trapped in a loveless marriage?
Not at all. Sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible. But to be completely frank, and we both just watched a film on the Khmer Rouge, so we may be a little bit more harsh than normal. But to be completely frank, it all sounds fairly survivable with the proper coping mechanisms in place. Like we've said it before, like just sit Diana down and say, hey, this is not ending. You get to, because my real thing with him, oh my guys, we are so mad.
So I'm sure there's a lot of people turned us off by now, but that's
it's fine. If he's allowed to sleep with Camilla, she's allowed to sleep with whoever she wants.
Whatever she wants.
Solve so much. Like just agree to get your wicks wet in other places. Like just do it. It's okay.
Which is what Anne told him. Anne was like, Camilla and Andrew are happy. He sleeps with all her friends. She sleeps with Charles. They raise some kids together. Happy dappy. But like,
the thing is that Diana is not consenting to this life, and you don't care that she's not.
The fact that in this episode he complains to his mother about her infidelity, I wanted to reach through the television screen and strangle him. You think
like Josh O'Connor is selling it, hand the boy his Emmy, but like
give him, he's so good. Except my mom said, like, I don't think Charles like hunched over that much. She thought the physicality was too much, but that's neither here nor there.
It's okay. They screwed up Maggie's wigs, so everybody gets a little bit of grace.
But like,
I never want to spend a moment with this Charles ever again.
Ever. And so, you know, give Olivia Colman more Emmys, give Josh O'Connor one for that scene with the two of them. I love how little fucks the queen had, excuse my French.
Because she's not talking to her kid. And I know we've had this conversation before and people have commented, and a lot of other commenters say that like she was a really bad mom to Charles and Anne. And it seems like has somewhat admitted that, even like real life Lizzie, and how differently she treats her granddaughters-in-law versus how she treated Diana and kind of what that all looks like. But for anyone who doesn't have, so first of all, oldest children always have a thing about duty. Generally, like that's a biological thing. She is the oldest daughter of the planet and has been for a really long time. And so I don't think she was a bad mom. I really don't. I think it was really inappropriate of anyone to expect her to be any different.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that like, the point I was trying to get to about the fact that she can't really change that much.
No.
And it's like, why would Charles look at her and think that she should, or why would Charles look at her and think that his life shouldn't be the same when he's the oldest child of the monarch? And I'm really sorry you're miserable. And I'm really sorry you've been miserable probably your whole life. But that's why God invented antidepressants and therapy. And learn to communicate with your wife. Find joy where you can with your children, with your mistress, whatever. And accept that like this is your lot in life.
Yeah, he's like, his problem is that he's the fantasist, just like Anne said last episode.
And like, where did that come from? How did you birth a fantasist into this family that has done everything by role and duty and service and sacrifice?
Oh, it's the recessive gene from the abdication. That's what I think we're supposed to believe. Because why else did I have to waste so much time giving a crap about that? Because let me tell you, I still don't. This is the thing. We read romance novels. We believe that love is super, super powerful. Mm-hmm. We believe that love is the only thing that ever wins. We believe that love is the activating force of the universe. But the thing is that the narrow view of sexual love as being love and like all of that is destructive. Mm-hmm. And it can't be. So love of country is powerful. Love of family is powerful. Love of self is powerful. And the only version of love that Charles has given any truck to is the one that is attached to his body. Mm-hmm. And I just...
Yeah, it's real hard to stomach, y'all. And like, I was okay with it more in season 3 when we had a younger Charles.
Good point. Yeah, the 40-year-old stuff is like, are you kidding? As soon as he hit my age, I was like,
Yeah, as soon as he got into his 30s, I was like, I'm sorry. And we're like messaging each other back and forth, like, could you ever imagine behaving like this? So I know we both want to talk about our MVP, low-key MVP for the episode, Philip, but particularly because he comes in at the end. We're at some royal estate. It was not Balmoral. I do not know, for Christmas. Sandringham, maybe? They go to
Sandringham, because that's where she always goes for Christmas, because she didn't this year, and that was a really big deal.
Right. So we're at Sandringham for Christmas. Diana's miserable. She's hiding out in her room. She's not going down to the family fete. But they're going to take a picture, and Philip goes to check on her.
And she's wearing some class Jordache jeans.
Oh boy, is it so 80s. Late 80s, early 90s. And he asks her what it feels like to be a member of the family. And she says it is a cold, frozen tundra.
Which it definitely seems. I don't disagree with her. It does not seem pleasant. I would not want to be part of this family.
I wouldn't want to be part of that family either.
Like, the person I now want to have dinner with the most on the planet is Kate Middleton. I have so many questions. How many NDAs would you like me to sign? I will sign literally all of them. Would you like a blood sample? I'll give it to you. Just let me ask Kate some questions.
Big fans of Kate Middleton here with the Good Doctors. And it gets to be more of a lecture than a conversation towards the end.
Because Philip.
And I think what's fascinating, and we've had a lot of problems with Philip and how much the show has spent time on him, but I think it was almost weirdly justified by this final scene, in that we had to know so much about who he was to know that at the end of the day, he is one of the only people in the family that truly understands his role and truly understands his wife.
After all that argy-bargy they went through to get him there, he gets it now.
He's the only one that's on the same page as Elizabeth. That is what we have seen. And that's what this final scene showed us. And it was actually really powerful. And it made me mind less all the time we spent with Philip in the first 2 seasons. Not totally.
Except for that one episode where he spent so much time at the school. I still hate that one. Yeah, I know. I've almost blocked it.
And it was the point that he gets to is that, like, you know, I know you're an outsider. I'm an outsider. He's like, we're all outsiders. And I wrote it down because it was one of the best lines in the show. Everyone in this system is a lost, lonely, irrelevant outsider apart from the only person that matters. Now.
And your problem is you have confused who that is.
You have confused who that is. Because you think it's Charles, but it's not. It's her.
I don't even know if she thinks it's Charles. I think she thinks it's her.
Oh, maybe.
I think that's I think his point is that you are enough of a child that you do not realize that you do not matter. You want praise for going and hugging an AIDS orphan. You want praise for doing all these things. You don't get praise. Your job is to make her look good.
That's all of our job.
Your job will be to make him look good. And that's your existence.
Yeah. And like.
That's how I read it anyway.
No, I agree with you. And I think, like, what's so frustrating about it is because from his perspective, he's not wrong. I mean, we can have asides as to whether we think that's an emotionally healthy way to run a family. It's not.
It is not. I do think it's the only way that they can run this one, though.
It's the only way the royal family survives. And, you know, if you're watching this going, well, then the royal family should survive. I'm not sure I disagree with you, but, you know.
That's a separate conversation about whether or not fame is a human rights issue, which I'm still chewing on. Nadine, I know you're with us.
Hey, Nadine. But, you know, what made me frustrated at this moment was that this was a conversation they should have had with her before she got married.
100%. This is at least 5 years overdue. If not 10. I don't know. Because you know what? I have no idea where we are in the timeline.
I have no idea where it is.
No, but we've got to be around their 10th anniversary because William is 8-ish.
Playing rugby.
Looking adorable.
I love the Ruggers. Yeah, so for me, I think that's where, you know, she could have dealt with a lot more if they had just been this honest with her from the beginning. She was also 20 and too immature. As a very immature for a 20-year-old, never mind just being underdeveloped.
And they are wrong in some ways in which, if they wanted to truly make Elizabeth look good, they could have unleashed Diana in very specific ways. I think Diana could have made Elizabeth look great. Yeah. I think she could, if she had been coached appropriately, the whole royal family could have changed with her presence.
And if Charles hadn't, like, sabotaged her.
It all could have been different. She did change the royal family. We do now have Kate and Meghan, and I 100% want Meghan to never re-enter her Duchess role after watching this show.
No.
Evidently, they took themselves off social media completely as we record this, which makes me happy for them. I wish I could do the same. So,
girl, like, go live your life.
In Malibu and raise your baby.
Do it. Go have more babies. All God's children.
But there's so much fault on all sides here, and so many ugly choices that were made out of desperation and misinformation and ill assumptions, and it is just all really ugly. The only person at this point that I truly cannot with at all is this version of Charles, which is why I'm desperate to believe that this is a highly dramatized one. But like I said, our only interaction is that my husband met him once 5-8 years ago, in which there was a very different Charles. So, like, you know, my husband shook his hand. That's all we got.
Yeah. And, you know, what we know publicly of Charles is, like, Camilla Charles seems like a decent dude, laughs and smiles a lot.
Appears to treat people with dignity when he meets them.
Charles is a dad we know from The Boys, was a very present and very good dad.
Seems to be a great granda.
Loves the grandbabies. So we don't know a lot about Charles, the future monarch, sometime maybe. So I'm intrigued by this depiction of him, this version of him. But I'm really not super excited for the next season if this is the Charles we have to keep watching into the 90s. He has not been cast yet for season 5.
According to reports that I have read, after they get divorced, he calms down quite a bit and becomes a decent human being, even to Diana again, that they were quite friendly actually when she passed. So hopefully this is one of those times in which toxic people are toxic situations make people toxic when they aren't normally. But I don't know if I can sit through another season of this. I know I say that every season. This is really hitting those buttons.
This was a lot of drama. And the last shot we get of any of these actors in these roles, because they're done, is Emma Corrin's very sad face in the family photo, to which I yelled in all caps, "This is how we end the season, about the crown." And that's the last we see of Olivia Colman in this role. Very frustrated by it. We did get more of her towards the latter half of the season and more like meatier stuff for Olivia Colman. But I am glad that she is free and can now do other things, is my underlying thought about that. We'll do a season recap in the next week or so to give you guys. On the Northern Ireland front, we did get one more reference to Ulster, y'all. If you had that on your crown bingo, you win. At the start of the episode.
In the news report, I got really nervous that we were going to cover Northern Ireland again. I was glad we moved swiftly on to whatever the heck the next one was.
Ulster and terrorists or something was what they mentioned. And then we had a random reporter who was clearly from Northern Ireland, to us, clearly from Northern Ireland. And my thought was like, why are you making all these people who don't understand Northern Irish accents listen to this person read the news?
It also sounded like a vague imitation of a Northern Irish accent, like, because they weren't speaking quickly enough for it to be a Northern Irish person.
Correct. So. Well, maybe it's like a Northern Irish person who becomes a presenter for the BBC. And has learned how to enunciate
consonants, which is something that many dialects in the province struggle with doing.
Has to tone down the larn of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like your one Bill something is a reporter for NBC, and he's from Northern Ireland, and he's
right.
Bill Nay or Nye or something, and it's very, very toned down. It only slips out with certain words. That he
had a better media trainer than Rory McIlroy. Then, thank God.
So I don't think we have any more to say about Northern Ireland for this season. I mean, a lot of stuff happened in the 80s they didn't talk about. So if anybody wants to hear that, let us know, and we could consider.
We can easily do a Northern Ireland in the 80s recap, because then we could even talk about Good Vibrations, which would be fun.
We could. Yeah, by the end of the 80s in Northern Ireland, we're into secret talks, and the troubles are slowly but surely winding down.
They're heading towards their current frozen state. They're
heading
getting
towards
icy.
their transition from violent conflict towards political conflict, because there's still a heck of a lot of conflict happening in that wee part of the world. So if anybody wants to know about that, let us know, please, in the comments. Otherwise, I don't think we'll do it. And maybe they'll talk about the ceasefires or the Good Friday Agreement in season 5.
Which is 94 and 98, respectively. So
who knows? Or they'll skip it all and pretend that the only thing that happened was Lord Mountbatten's assassination.
We're going to keep being salty about that. But good news for you and for our souls.
We're done.
We're done. And the next season doesn't pretend anything exists outside of London and Somerset, much less that Northern Ireland exists, because it didn't historically at the time. So everything's fine. We're going to talk about Bridgerton.
We're going to
and we'll see you. We will see you next week for a bit of an introduction to the romance industry and the tropes to expect if you're going to jump into this series with us, and kind of all the small ways that this is different than television focused at women, and why romance is its own genre. And we're going to have that conversation. And we look forward to all of the chat about Daphne and Simon.
So good. Yeah, we're excited to talk about feminism in literature and feminism on television. And to do it through one of our great loves, which is the Bridgerton clan. So look out for our season 4 recap. We'll do it sometime and have it up for everybody. And hopefully you all stick around, and we'll see you next week for episode 1 of Bridgerton. Bye.
Bye.